Hi guys, Bran here, and today I wanted to do something a little bit different. So, as you can already see, I have already ranked the killers, my favorite killers, my top 10 favorite killers, and my top 10 least favorite killers in Dead by Daylight. But I want to do another ranked list today, and that is of the maps, because I have very strong feelings about the maps in this game. So, and you're going to notice a trend very, very quickly and very, very early on about how I feel about certain maps in this game. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and rank all the maps in this game. The only ones we aren't going to do is I'm just going to kind of loop Badham into like one thing, just because I don't feel like rating every individual Badham. So that's going to be the only thing that I don't rate. But yeah, before we get started, if you like the content that I make sure to like it, because you know I met you probably because this video showed up for you and because somebody liked it before you, and I like hanging out with you, so you know, create that fun experience with somebody else so we can keep, you know, building a very, very nice group of peepos for our YouTube stuff. So yeah, also there's a Twitch thing over there that you can go see if you want to hang out with me more often than just on the YouTube side of things. That's my Twitch is for. But yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Starting off, we have Rotten Fields. It's either high or low this is fine. The good this is fine. I think I'll put it in low this is fine. Because Rotten Fields, unlike most maps in Dead by Daylight, allow most killers to use their power. There are some, like Blight, you know, where you have a tremendous issue using your power on this map. But like Huntress, like Billy, most killers, this is a pretty fine map to use your power on, and it's not like tremendously huge like a lot of the maps in this game, so it's not really facing that huge like giganto map problem that most maps in this game have, because even the medium maps in this game are super huge and annoying to play on. So the survivors aren't running away with a free win, but there's still a lot of space. You obviously have Pantry on all of the corn maps, which is a very, very strong tile that they get just because it came to just because it came to corn map. So like I think it's not a balanced map. I still think it's a little survivor sided, just because like I said, like when you get a killer like Blight, or even like the stalking killers like Michael and Ghostface, like it could be pretty rough, all that with all the obstructions to your power. So it's still slightly survivor sided, but I think compared to other maps in the game, it's okay. Like I said, it is fine. It's fine. Thompson House, I'm gonna put also in this is fine. I was gonna put it in just because like Thompson House is a pretty long map, and it's got, in terms of like just tile structure, it's kind of strong. The only real like dead zone area is kind of like in the center, but if you do that gen right away, or do that gen even relatively soon into the map or match, it just kind of like, you know, deflates everything and makes the rest of the match super easy. The reason it stays and this is fine though is because the new Thompson House from the remake is literally one of the most beautiful main buildings in the game, period. Like that main building, they put an immense amount of effort into that main building, and it looks gorgeous. It is my favorite main building in the game currently, and it just looks great. So even when I'm getting my butt handed to me as killer, I love going into that building. I love going in that building. So yeah. Torment Creek. I'm gonna put it behind Thompson House, and then this is fine section. Torment Creek is one of those maps that just kind of like gets very like aggressive or unaggressive at certain points. So like the Fallen Silo is the main building of this map. Otherwise, it's just another long corn map. You know, we've never seen that before, right? The thing with the silo is sometimes the silo spawns really weak for survivors, which can be frustrating for the survivors, or sometimes it spawns really strong for survivors. I've had like 6 pallets around the silo before. There was like 2 on each of the sides of the silo that spawn right outside where it's fallen down, and then there was like 3 immediate tiles, and then there was like another one behind it. So it was like there was just like tiles, like there was pallets literally everywhere around this thing. But sometimes it doesn't do that, and then that's pretty weak. Although they did add the breakable door to that window, which was already super annoying, and now you have to kick a door just to make that window, which is already hard to play, even more annoying to play. I'm actually putting this in because of that. It's kind of bland. The silo itself is not an interesting main building. I don't think it's just I don't like playing this as killer or survivor. It's just a big It's gonna be probably the top of but it's gonna be Fractured Cowshed. The first, please no. The first of the bottom tier. Fractured Cowshed makes looping super easy for the survivor. So the survivors aren't having fun because essentially the win is handed to them on a silver platter. It's super easy to chain. Like, chaining tiles is a hard thing to do and a hard thing to know when to do. And this is one of those maps where it just gives you strong tiles back to back to back to back to back. So you just like don't have to think about it. So even the dumbest of survivor can just run it super easily. But even in that regard, like like when I run Fractured Cowshed as survivor, I'm not having fun because of that, because I know the things I'm doing aren't skillful or interesting. I'm just taking advantage of a powerful map, so it's not rewarding as survivor. But on killer, I'm just suffering, so like I'm not having a good time like there either. So it's just like all around not a great time. We have one more core map, and that's the Rancid Abattoir. I like the Abattoir a lot. But yeah, I'm gonna put it in Let's Go. I think I have generally a good time on both sides playing the Abattoir. It's not a huge map, and that's kind of like the biggest like fatal mistake of most DBD maps, is they're just like way too big for like absolutely no reason. They think making a map bigger makes it better. Rancid Abattoir is not one of those maps that's huge. The main building is good without being obnoxious. You got that God window that used to be much worse. That is at the front of it or back of it, depending on like how it spawns. But there's that window you can hop out, and then you can, you know, loop for longer. You got the actual, like, where the pig pen is, where you can, like, run in and out of those rails, but you can hit over those rails. And if you're, like, somebody like Huntress, you can hit over them. And then the map's not too tremendously huge. So it's not like, you know, killers aren't going to be able to pressure things. But also, survivors have, like I said, plenty of things to work with, like that really strong window in the main building. Obviously, you have, you know, Cow Tree, and you have Shack, so... You know, you got a lot going on both sides here. It's one of the more balanced maps in the game, so I think in that regard, it's, you know, that's okay. Let's go. You know, Disturbed Ward. I'm gonna put it in. Disturbed Ward has a cool aesthetic. I like the cool aesthetic, at least before the rework. I think in the rework they like washed out all the colors, because it used to be kind of this moody, dark, you know, kind of like gritty environment, but now it's just kind of like all washed out. And I do like the burning effect they added to a lot of the environments, but for the most part I preferred how it was before. But like Disturbed Ward, the main building, even though they weakened it, they like nerfed the main building. The main building's still obnoxious to run as killer. It's just kind of like a really strong structure, which would be okay, but in addition to having that really strong structure in the middle, the map's pretty big. It's got two cubby holes. I like to call them cubby holes. It's like those dead ends. There's two dead ends where like it goes nowhere else and it's just a box. You can't like go around it. So there's two cubby holes. The two cubby holes just kind of like very much directly benefit survivors, and they don't have to do anything to take advantage of it. It just kind of like, and just benefits them just because it exists, because it's pretty safe to do those gens back there, because you have to go so far out of your way to like pressure them. So I typically hate maps with the cubby holes. And so that, in addition to the, yeah, I'm going to put this behind Torment Creek, actually, because the main building being obnoxious, in addition to the cubby holes, makes it, like, super annoying. So I don't really like playing that map, even though aesthetically it used to be super neat. Father Campbell's Chapel. I'm going to put it... This used to be my favorite map in the game. Like, when I first started playing the game, this was my favorite map in the game. Okay, I'm going to put it here for now, and we're going to talk about it. So Father, the chapel used to be my favorite map in the game. Like I said, I preferred the old way that that this realm used to look, where it would look darker and grittier, but they kind of like washed out all the colors with the remake. So now I kind of hate it. This main building is still probably one of the coolest main buildings in the game, just because it's just, yeah, no, it's just cool looking, you know. They put a breakable wall in there again, so they ruined another great structure just by mashing breakable walls in, because I don't think Behavior knows what they want to do with the breakable wall thing. I don't think they know why they put breakable walls in certain places or why they put them in certain ways. I don't know, but they're ruining a lot of maps doing it. So this is another main building that just like arbitrarily got stronger just because they started putting breakable walls in it. So now it's not, it used to be in Let's Go. It used to be like up here, but I think with the rework, I'm gonna put it like at the top of this is fine. This used to be my favorite map when I first started playing, but it's just kind of, oh boy, Haddonfield. This hurts. This definitely hurts because you know, I'm a huge Halloween fan. I love the Halloween franchise so much. It's my favorite horror franchise. But it's just a poorly designed map from the top to the bottom. House of Pain, free looping as long as you don't screw it up. Fences make it hard to use your power. The buildings make it hard to use your power. The map itself may not be huge, but there's so much vertical space because there's so many buildings that like you're having all these self-contained chases that don't affect anybody else, and you waste a lot of time in those buildings. It's essentially just like one of the most aggressively survivor designed maps in the game, but we'll get to the most aggressively survivor sided map in the game. But in general, it's just kind of like one of the most lopsided maps in the game. And as a result, it's just like not fun to play on either side, because when you're playing on Survivor, you're mostly just taking advantage of broken windows and broken structures. You're not really like looping at tiles. There's like maybe like 3-4-ish tiles. There's like the ones by the cars, and then there's the one in the hedge maze, and then there's that one by the bench. And those can spawn in any combo, but typically most of the time you're looping, you're taking advantage of broken fences, broken windows, broken buildings, stuff like that. So like it's child's play. It's like super easy. Like, so they're not having fun because the things they're doing aren't skillful, and you're not having fun because, you know, it's just like so balanced in their favor. So yeah, I don't think that surprised anybody. So I'm not gonna go too far into it. I wish I was more mad so I could rant more, but you knew Haddonfield was gonna be like bottom 3, so you know. Okay, so Pale Rose. We're gonna do these as a group. Pale Rose and Grim Pantry. Pale Rose and Grim Pantry. The swap maps are very disgusting. It's hard to see. So like I was talking about earlier, how like the Disturbed Ward and Father's Chapel used to be prettier. They used to have like higher contrast and more colors, and they just kind of washed it out entirely. These maps, that is their primary aesthetic. This was like the first maps in the game that had that aesthetic, which makes it like hard to see things. The maps aren't pretty to look at, so it's just like gross and dirty. And the map spawns themselves are very awkward. I would say they're very, very awkward and bad. Like everything spawns on the edges, which, you know, is like never good for killer, so it's not a good killer map. But this map is very like unpredictable, because sometimes in the middle of that swamp area they will spawn a gen, and then there'll be literally nothing around it. There's just a dead zone for a majority of the map in the center of the map, and you're just like, oh, and then you're just screwed as Survivor. Like, you just go down easy because there's literally nothing there. And other times they'll spawn like freaking like eight tiles in the middle of the map, and it's almost like Suffocation Pit, except with only weak tiles. There's just like a bunch of weak tiles in the middle, and it's like Suffocation Pit. But there's also Shack. There's also the pier if you're on Pale Rose, and there's also the I think it's the chicken. Isn't it a chicken coop? Somebody told me it was a chicken coop. The secondary building on Grim Pantry. But you also have that in addition to all these small weak tiles in the middle that are numerous. So either way, like, somebody's like, I very rarely see a balanced spawn of this map. It's either aggressively survivor side or aggressively killer sided in terms of that center zone of the map, and it's just like harsh and unpredictable. Grim Pantry is also one of my least favorite main buildings in the game. The bottom of it is confusing, convoluted, and with the spawn points of where the doors are being super random on that bottom level, it's agonizing. It is not fun to run on either side. Also, top side, if you run those windows correctly, it's almost literally an infinite. Like, if you run those windows top side correctly, you will not catch up to the Survivor. So there's just like, these maps just seem almost experimental, the swamp maps seem, but like, they like learned from these maps and made better maps after it, but left these the way they are. And I know that's not how it actually happened, but like, that's just how it feels when you play them. They don't feel like finished maps. They feel like maps that shouldn't be in the game. Oh, good old Larry's. I don't know. This is a map I used to like, but I've kind of soured on it as time has went. I'm going to put it at the bottom of... I think a lot of my love from it came because I was a Myers main and I did a lot of Scratch Mirror. But I think in most regards, I'm going to put it in I think it's a cool map. I think aesthetically it's very, very neat. It's a very like horror aesthetic in a horror game. And I think in that regard, it's super cool. So that's why I can't put it like any lower. But it's still an because like I was talking about earlier with some other maps, this map makes it really hard to use your powers. You can't be a Bubba, you can't be a Billy, you can't be a Huntress or a Blight. You know, like it cuts off so many powers. And when the whole point of playing killer is using your power, it's like, it's just really disheartening to have a map that just like almost intentionally blocks you from using your power and it just makes you an M1 killer. Also, survivors aren't having fun because you don't know what's going to be around the corner. If you enter a room, you don't know if there's going to be a tile there. There's plenty of times I've died on Larry's when I've run into a room and there's just not, like, there's a door there, but you can't go through. It's not a doorway, it's a door, you know what I'm saying? So you can't leave that direction, and there's no tile in here, so you just died to the killer that you were in chasing. But, like, how are you supposed to know, unless you had windows of opportunity, that this room was just a dead zone? So you just lose just because you couldn't see what was in here? Like, it's just ridiculous, dude. And then sometimes it's, like, really oppressive for Survivor, because it is kind of a long map. It's built kind of like a football field, and then you'll have a spawn of Larry's where it's just like window vault into window vault into window vault into door into pallet, and it's almost like Cowshed, where it's just like you just had a straight line of like 10 billion resources to use, and now I've wasted a bunch of time, and now the survivors are going to win just because you got a good spawn. So it's just like Larry's just kind of like, I think it's the epitome of actually. I think it is the est map in the game, because like people, like, as cool as it is aesthetically, it's just kind of like playing on it is just kind of a chore. So it's just kind of like, Mother's Dwelling. We're going to put it at the bottom of Please No. Once again, Mother's Dwelling is one of those maps that very cool aesthetic. Some, you know, forgotten raining forest. Really cool horror aesthetic. But it's the biggest map in the game. And that's probably the biggest error that a map in Dead by Daylight can commit, is being huge. Because what happens with that is survivors get to do gens essentially in secret, because even with high mobility killers, it's hard to reach you to pressure you off the gen. So basically you just get to do gens for free. And then on the flip side of a survivor, you're not having fun because you're not really chasing. You're kind of beginning to like hold M1 without, like, you know, much interruptions. It's not like you're chasing a whole bunch. So it's just kind of a very poorly designed map. I would love to see in the future if they shrunk this map. If they shrunk this map, probably this is fine. Probably be up here. Maybe even a Let's Go. But until they shrink it, it's just kind of miserable. Like, that main building is fine, honestly. It's a pretty well-balanced main building. There's plenty of windows, plenty of railing vaults. Sometimes it spawns a god window, sometimes it doesn't. There's pallets around the outside. If you have balance, you can go off the top. It's actually a really well-designed main building. It's just that the rest of the map is just a slog. So if they shrunk this map, it would honestly probably be a Let's Go. But, like, it's only, like, the size just flat out ruins it and ruins it entirely. Temple of Purgation, I'm going to put at the bottom of and it's for the same reasons. The only reason it's not in Please No is because its aesthetic is so cool. Like the forgotten, abandoned old temple is just like, it's such a neat aesthetic, and I really appreciate it. And because that main building takes up so much space, like the sides of the map, even though the map is huge, the sides of the map are very narrow, which creates a lot of interesting scenarios. Survivors still have a lot of tiles and stuff to work with, including a shack. They also have a whole downstairs of the temple where they can waste time, and we're going to get to downstairs basements here in a second. So the survivors can waste time. It's also a very, very long map, so, you know, we have that problem again, where, like, gens are being done in secret. There's not a whole lot of chases, which is the whole point of the freaking game. So it's going to just, purely based on a cool aesthetic alone, is not going to end up in the Please No tier, but it's pretty close. It is saved by its aesthetic alone. Okay, here we go. Bad ham. I'm gonna put it at the top of Please No. Like I said, I'm not rating each individual Badham. I just, you know, they're not that awfully different. Okay, they're not that awfully different. So, Badham Preschool. So, Badham Preschool is kind of like a combination of every bad thing that you could do to a map in Dead by Daylight. House of Pain. It's in here. I don't care that there's breakable walls. It's still pretty sufferable. A lot of verticality from Haddonfield. It's a big map, just like, you know, we've had with other maps in the game. Like, it just has every problem that makes a map boring in Dead by Daylight. It's big. It has a lot of verticality. Gens are being done in secret. Like, it has every problem. Like, that basement and that preschool is such a strong tile. And frightening thing is before the rework, those breakable walls, the only good break walls in the game, in my opinion, weren't even there on each side of the school. So you could leave the school and continue looping at different tiles. That school is probably one of the stronger main buildings in the entire game. I hate that place. And in addition to that, there's a shack. There's also a 2-story house. There's also House of Pain. Like this could not be a more like spoon-fed survivor map unless it was Fractured Cowshed or Haddonfield. Like it literally, like it is tremendously hard to play this map on Killer. And if you lose on this map as survivor, you're messing up, because you have so many good resources to work with. Most of the pallets, like besides the tree pallet behind the preschool, like most of the pallets are pretty strong on this map too. So like I don't know, dude, like unless you're like ridiculously screwing up, you shouldn't be losing on this map as survivor. And like I said, any map that's just like ridiculously lopsided is just kind of like not fun to play for either side. So the only reason it's like as high on the please no, even though it's in bottom tier, it's pretty high up, is just because I like Nightmare on Elm Street. It's my second favorite horror AP, so I have a soft spot for it. Also, it's just a fun thing on the stream to go bad ham. But other than that, it's just a miserable map on both sides, in my opinion. Speaking of absolutely miserable maps, the current edition of the game, or the meatpacking plant, is probably the least fun map in all of Dead by Daylight. That is, like, I hate the new game more than I hated old Ormond, because every tile except for the one downstairs, there's one downstairs where it's just a box and a pallet, and it's like at the dead center. I think you know which one I'm talking about. But that is the only one. Every other pallet on this map is safe, meaning that there is no mind gaming. You just got to get out of the way. See, in that scenario where you're playing like a shack on any map, when the survivor drops God pallet, you say, okay, that's a really safe pallet. I need to kick that. But when all 25 or 6 of these freaking things are safe pallets all over the map, and you have to kick all of them, you run into this problem of, I'm not really creating dead zones because there's pallets everywhere. The pallet count is so high, and not only is it so high, they're also safe. So I'm wasting time kicking them, but if I leave them up, they're too strong. You are just in a lose-lose situation when you play this map as Killer. And you may be saying, oh, well, like, at least, like, Nurse has a good time. I'm like, Nurse needs a lot of line of sight to get blinks correctly. So if you're downstairs, you're having a rough problem, buddy. You're having rough trouble. It is maps like these that Killers run like really obnoxious stuff, I feel. Like that, it's not the root cause or the only cause, but it's maps like these where I understand somebody running like a really obnoxious build, because you gotta catch up somehow when every tile on this map has a safe pallet that you can just pre-drop and call it a freaking day. It is the most miserable map in the entire game. And I don't even have fun when I get this on Survivor, because like I said, I'm just pre-dropping pallets that are completely safe. So I'm not really looping either, and it's just miserable. It's just a miserable map, and they just did like such a horrible job on it. Like, it is aesthetically beautiful compared to its pre-rework counterpart, but man, mechanically, it is one of the most disgusting maps in the game. But it's not the most disgusting. We'll get to that. Okay, Yamaoka Death Pagoda, or the family residence, which is not the Death Pagoda. Yamaoka family residence. I'm gonna put it at the top of it's a cool aesthetic. I like the aesthetic that it has going on. Very cool. The sky's like red and it's like foresty. I like that a lot. But this map is quite literally, if you look at this map on like the Dead by Daylight wiki, it's literally just a football field. Like, it is literally structured like a football field, and it's just like ridiculously hilarious to see. So once again, we're running into that issue of like gens are mostly getting done in secret because, you know, the map's so long that it takes a killer, even if they have good mobility, so long to get across the map to pressure those gens that you're just kind of like, why is this map so long? You're just having such like a rough time. Survivor on this map is pretty fun. it's got weird unique tiles that only spawn on Yamaoka and Ormond, that are pretty weird and funny to run. Also, it has those weird little, like, I guess they literally are pagodas, where they have the railing that you can jump off, which creates interesting situations with like lithe or balance. Like there's some weird stuff you can do on this map. Also, this map also firmly lands in because some bamboo on this map you can run through, and other bamboo on this map you can't run through, and they visually look almost identical. So you will either win or lose a chase just based upon, oh, I could have gone through that, or oh, I ran into that because it's actually solid. I don't know why they made that decision. I think that's just dumb. But that's just a small gripe of just like something I've played on this map that I just find super annoying. So I'm not a big fan of it. Yamaoka Death Pagoda, the Sanctum of Wrath. We're going to put that right above its other realm counterpart. The Sanctum of Wrath, very, very cool. Very, very cool main building. Very, very cool main building. With the heads that track you everywhere. It is neat. I like it a lot. It is a very, very cool main area for a map. The problem once again lies in, you know, there's just most of these. The problem is just, oh, hey, this map's really big and it's really hard to interact with each other on this map because it's big. That's like the TLDR of this entire video. But for Sanctum, it's built like an X. It's built like a big X, with the big temple being where, you know, my arms cross over. So essentially what happens is survivors can just kind of like, you know, go into these corners because they're spread out pretty far, diagonally across from each other. Do those gens mostly, you know, uninterrupted, while somebody else is on another gen on the other side, you know, in one of those corners doing it. And since all the gens are in the corner except for like two, like usually there's the one up on the Sanctum itself, and then there's one that spawns more inward, usually on one side or the other, but the rest of the ones are in the corners. So once again, gens are in the corners, mostly out of the way of you know, the killer, so they're not really interacting a lot. There's not a whole lot of chasing going on between either side. It's mostly just, you know, it's an easier map to just kind of have boring gen efficiency, and for that regard, like the gameplay on it is just like not very fun. And yeah, I think that's the best I can say. That just the gameplay on it's not very fun, despite the map being aesthetically really cool. Okay, Mount Ormond, funny because this used to be the worst one in the game. I think I might put this at the top of but for now I'm going to put it at the bottom of this is fine. Because I think the snowy, wintry aesthetic, super cool. Very, very cool looking map, especially since it's rework. It looks really cool and really awesome. And this map also has a problem where it's kind of built like a football field. It's super long in length, which means it's hard to pressure all the gens. But I would argue this map is easier to give up certain gens on, because certain tiles aren't as strong. Like if they're hiding in Shack Gen at the very, very back of the map, you can honestly just give that. You can give that up, and then that back there's no reason for them to run back there, you know, and you kind of don't have to worry about that side of the map anymore. Also, if you could just fiercely defend that center gen that's in the resort itself, it really shrinks down the map a lot. It really shrinks down the map a lot. Old Ormond used to be like one of the most miserable maps in the game, because it used to have like the fractured cowshed problem where it was just tile into tile into tile into tile, and it was also bigger than cowshed. So the tiles are now more fair and balanced, and they don't spawn as many crazy stuff or as much crazy stuff. So this may be just like positive bias because I played Old Ormond and I hate it, so I'm just happy to see it in a better spot. But you know, we'll leave it at the bottom of this is fine, and I may change my opinion later, but for now I don't mind. Also, like I said, before I move on, you can use your powers on this map now that it's not just littered with pallets everywhere, so you can play like a Billy, a Blight, stuff like that. Also, the main building used to be a lot more obnoxious. It is no longer obnoxious. You can like cut a lot of people off. There's a god pallet upstairs that you can drop on the outside of the railing, but other than that, like, you can kind of mind game everything else that is in the main building, so it's mostly fine. It's mostly fine. This is fine. That is the name of the category. Exactly. See? Full circle. Okay. Hawkins. This is almost Please No. And it's funny because, like, I didn't used to hate this map. Like, I used to like this map a lot because I like stealth killers a lot, and obviously indoor maps benefit me. But this map's just stupid. Like, this map's just really dumb. So, like, it has that problem that I discussed on Larry's, and this is, like, the main perpetrator of the problem that we see on Larry's. Of, like, you go into a room, in the middle of a chase and you have no idea what's in there. You have no clue. You have absolutely no idea what's going on, like at all. You could walk in and there'll be nothing there to help you, or you could walk in and there's like a double pallet setup. Like it is like the most like luck-based map, I feel like, because like you could like even in like Killer, like when you're trying to like cut somebody off, some doors might just be shut. Like the doors that are open and shut are random. So you may down somebody, go to hook them, carry them a little bit, and find out that the hook's on the other side of a wall and that door is closed off. So now you have to walk around the entire tile, the entire room to come back and hook that person, and you can't do that. So you have to drop the person instead of hooking them and progressing the game because the map randomly decided to put a door there, but sometimes that door's not there. So it's not like you can reliably make a decision based off that. Like, it's just such a disgusting map. And then again, we're back here again. You can't really play Billy on it. You can't really play Blight that well on it. You can't play like Huntress very well on it. Like, it cucks a lot of powers. So here we are again, where killers aren't really having fun because they can't really use their power very much. Even if they're a stealth killer, like you don't know what's in each room. Survivors aren't having fun because they can't loop reliably because they don't know what's in each room. Also, like, if you're not in a 4-stack, it's super easy to like 3-gen on this map because most people are like, I'm going to do the upside down gen, then I'm going to do the isolation gen, and then like all the gens are close to each other downstairs. So if you're not in a 4-stack or even a 3-stack, you know, the random's going to do one of those gens because it's easy, and now you're in a rough spot with the killer, and you essentially lose the match when that happens. It's just annoying. But yeah, screw Hawkins. Dead Dog Saloon. I'm going to put it at the bottom of This Is Fine. And you may be going, Mr. Streamer, you're a killer, man. Dead Dog is it. My other Twitch streamer said, my other YouTube content creator said that Dead Dog Saloon is the best killer map, so you should like it too. Okay, listen. Dead Dog Saloon is the smallest map in the game. So, ergo, it's not that bad, right? Because, you know, you're much more able to interact with those gens. There's 2 things. Remember, this is a personal list, therefore it's subjective. 2 things I hate about this map so much that puts it in only the This Is Fine section. A, there's a lot of verticality. There's a lot of verticality to this map. These things may be like the map space may be small, but there's a lot of vertical space with the saloon, with the gallows, with the scaffoldings that are just all over the place. There's a lot of like vertical space, so it's not as small as you think. Also, B, I hate kicking breakable walls. Breakable walls are a stupid, useless mechanic, and I hate them. I don't know why they added it. In most regards, it just makes the match longer and punishes me for absolutely no reason other than map spawn. It is just stupid. It is a dumb mechanic, and this was the debut of that mechanic. So there's breakable walls everywhere on this map. I spend most of the time on this map kicking doors instead of playing the freaking video game, and I find it annoying. So even if I do better on this map, overall as killer, I'm not having an enjoyable time. So screw Dead Dog Saloon and its stupid breakable wall mechanic. Ugh, hate breakable walls. Midwich Elementary. Okay, I'm going to put this... I'm also going to put this in This Is Fine. And everybody's going to be like, wow, Mr. Streamer, that map's so badly designed. Okay, listen. Subjective. First off, subjective list, okay? Second of all, I love Silent Hill. I love Silent Hill a lot. I love that franchise bunches. And I think this is one of the most aesthetically beautiful maps in the game. I think aesthetically, this is the perfectly designed map. It makes me feel like I'm in a horror movie. It's faithful to the Silent Hill 1 map. It's just like nearly perfect in every way. Mechanically, yes, it is dog water. It is terrible. You know, you just end up holding W in these long hallways, and if you don't have a movement option, it sucks. Also, we have the problem we talked about with Hawkins, where you walk into a room and it could have a good tile or a bad tile or something like that. You run into that issue again. But I think like the map is so pretty that I can't put it lower than this. It really is a well cosmetically designed map. Like the visuals are very gorgeous, but mechanically it's gross. And if you look, it's kind of like at the center of the tier list so far, and I think that's where it belongs. Like aesthetically it's at the max, but like mechanically it's like almost at the bottom. So it balances out, which is why it's going there at the bottom of This Is Fine. Okay, it's my list. All right, speaking of poorly designed maps, the worst map in the game currently right now, the Raccoon City Police Station. Yes, let's just make a map the size of Mother's Dwelling and give it 2 floors across the entire length of that already huge map, and then make it only hallways. literally the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. The stupidest thing I have ever seen. This is a mistake. Like, I'll say, like, oh, Grim Pantry could be improved. Mother's Dwelling, if you shrunk it, it'd be fine. Like, RPD is a mistake. They should never have built this map this way. I understand. I love RE2. RE2 is like top 20 games I've ever played in my life, okay? I love Resident Evil so much. Resident Evil 1 is literally one of my favorite games of all time. And I love RPD. RPD is one of the coolest maps in all the video games. But it does not work in Dead by Daylight. It just doesn't. It does not. It does everything wrong for both sides. Too big. Can't use your powers. Some tiles are super weak or super strong, but you don't know. There's literally an infinite with that window in the like the reception area, like not the reception area because that's upstairs. The area off to the right. There's literally an infinite with that window. You can't find anything because it's all just walls. Single file powers like Nemesis zombies, you just lose. There's no counterplay. Like, it's just bad for everybody. Everybody hates this map. Nobody wants to be on this map. Please cut it in half, do something, but this map is god-awful, and from the top to the bottom, worst design decision ever. It wasn't even active for the longest time, and I wish it had stayed that way. Okay. Now we're getting into Auto Haven. Azarov's resting place. This is fine. This could be the top of this is fine, right? Because Azarov's is both good and bad. Azarov's is probably the map that is easiest to, you know, enforce the 3-gen. So on the killer side of things, it's pretty nice. It's kind of like Diet Suffocation Pit, where it's got a lot of strong tiles in the center, but it's not as like obnoxious as Suffo Pit. That being said, on the survivor side of things, like, you literally have two shacks. There's a shack on one side, and then there's the office, which is essentially shack part 2 with a breakable wall on the other side. So there's essentially two shacks in addition to all the tiles. So it's still pretty strong for survivor. It's an interesting map since it's reworked. It's a very, very interesting map, and I think like it kind of just benefits both sides in weird ways, and depending on how you play it, it's either really lopsided one way or really lopsided the other, and it just kind of depends on how the players play. And I think that kind of interactivity of like this map is what makes it pretty good. I don't put it on Let's Go just because like it is kind of lame when like you're random 3-gens and you're just like, I didn't have a say in that. Also, it's kind of lame when you're like, oh, they're only winning because they have two shacks, and it's just, you know, it's just dumb. Like, I find it's just barely not in Let's Go. New Blood Lodge, Old Blood Lodge was worse. Old Blood Lodge was literally a football field. But still, it's still just a really long map. And it's hard to pressure everything on the map, and you know how I feel about that, and we've said it a bunch in this video. When it's hard to interact with each other in a game all about interactivity, it's very, very It's kind of the epitome of It's the map I can think of. So yeah, I can't really say much else. It's just an map. The main building's not interesting, but it's not really balanced well either, so it's kind of like Gas Heaven. This is one of the coolest aesthetic maps, I think, that I remember this one being one of my personal favorites when I was starting to play the game too, is that like just Gas Heaven, like a abandoned gas station. It's just a cool aesthetic. It's just like an incredibly cool aesthetic for a game map, especially a horror game map. It's very, very cool. The gas station has a really cool dynamic of like, it's kind of like a death trap for a survivor until you know, you finish the gen in there, and then, you know, it's a pretty okay tile because you can just leave whenever you want, and you're not caught in this like corner of the garage. But it's still really strong for survivors because you got the big long car walls, which makes it like easier to avoid killer powers without necessarily like completely ruining killer powers. It is a huge map, but there's a lot of like ways to get places, which makes it not as awful if you have like a higher mobility killer. I don't know. I think it's just like an aesthetically a cool map, and like there's just a lot of interesting stuff going on it. So I don't know. I just think it's neat. Wrecker's Yard. This one's a hard one. I want to put it like the bottom of Let's Go, or like, because like here's the thing. I love this map on Killer, but I don't like it on Survivor. So like both sides of me are conflicted right now. I think I'm going to put it at the top of this is fine, because Wrecker's Yard is an amazing killer map. There's no main building. The main building is just shack, and shack is always in the center, which means that basement plays, it's the best map for basement plays. It's just like, it's a very, very simple map. It's like bare bones. And in that regard, I like its simplicity. But in that regard, I think the simplicity does not benefit Survivor at all. And it's definitely a more lopsided killer map as a result of that. And lopsidedness is just, like, not fun in most scenarios. I do like this map, like I said, because obviously I'm a killer main. And when I get this map, it's just, like, not as rough because there's not enough, like, BS to deal with. But in the same regard, I don't think there's a lot for survivors to work with on this map because of that, and I think that could be rough on the survivor side of things. So I can't put it in Let's Go, even though I want to. It would just be a really, really biased killer thing to do that. So I'm gonna put it in This Is Fine. Wretched Shop. How do I feel about Wretched Shop? I always lose on Wretched Shop. Wretched Shop's like one of my worst maps for some reason. I'm gonna put it. Yeah, I'll put it right there. That looks about right. Yeah, that's fine. Wretched Shop is cool. It's dynamic. Its main building is very dynamic. If the breakable wall spawns next to the window, it's survivor-sided. But if the breakable wall spawns on the opposite side of the window, it's a death trap, like the garage in Gas Heaven. So, like, I like that kind of, like, weird, like, tone of the match that's initially set just based on how strong the main building is. You know, I think it's just a really, really neat thing. Once again, it's another bigger map where a lot of gens are on the edges, and I've talked about that this entire video, so that's the main reason I can't, like, get with it. But, like, I think the main building is just really interesting, so I'm gonna put it in the This Is Fine section. Groaning Storehouse. Groaning Storehouse. I'm gonna put this, like, like, back here behind, or right above Torment Creek. Yeah. So I'm going to put it right there because Groaning Storehouse is an incredibly annoying main building, and it's got two cubbies, and you know how I feel about the cubby holes on maps. Cubby holes are annoying, and they're just places for people to waste time, and it just has no benefit for the killer almost nearly at all to have those cubby holes, so it's just lopsided. The main building is also super frustrating because it has a god loop until you break a door, and even when you break that door, there's a pallet inside that's pretty safe. And then there's another window right next to that pallet, depending. It's just like a really, really strong main building, really big map, and there's two cubby holes where the survivors can waste a lot of time. It's just really lopsided in the survivor favor. And I just don't like lopsided maps. And it's just not a good... It was better before, because it used to be you go in there and it was like the two pallets, but we didn't have the crazy god window, and that was better. But they goofed it up. They returned it to a stronger, more annoying form just so we could implement more breakable walls. You know, the best mechanic ever. So they kind of ruined it trying to do breakable wall stuff, and that's a shame. Let's see. Coal Tower. The best boys. Coal Tower is my favorite map because it is kind of like the epitome of balance. Main building. Good. Strong. But not too strong. The map is not huge. There's no, like, crazy tile spawns. There's some that can happen. I've seen double pallets. I've seen double pallet spawns on this map. But I've also seen double tire tracks. I've seen tiles spawned, like, 3 in a row. Almost Suffocation Pit style on, like, that right side. Like, it's a pretty balanced map. There's just, like, it's not aggressively killer. It's not aggressively survivor. I think most maps should look at Coal Tower and be more like Coal Tower. It should just be like Coal Tower. That is the TLDR of this video. Just be like Coal Tower. The Ironworks of Misery. I think I'm gonna put it right above Storehouse. It's, once again, TLDR, big map. Gens are mostly on the edges, super annoying. Like, it kind of has the issue that Temple has, or not even the issue, it has the thing that Temple has, where, like, the center building's so big that even though the map is big, it kind of like bottlenecks certain areas, which does benefit killer a fair bit. But most of the time, unless you have a high mobility killer, it's hard to play Ironworks just because you have to go so far. And plus that upstairs area where you're forced to break the breakable wall to continue chasing, because that was already an annoying thing to do, was to have to chase upstairs. Now you have to break a breakable wall, so essentially they get a free vault on this already really long loop. It's just dumb. It's just dumb. It's just not the funnest. Shelter Woods. I'm not a fan of this map. I'm just not. I know most people, like, you're like, Mr. Streamer, you play killer. You play killer. Why don't you like Shelter Woods? Okay, we're going to put it on the top of eh. So, yeah, like, it's a pretty killer-sided map because it only spawns, like, like 5 tiles, like total. They have like a bunch of short tiles, and then there's like maybe like 3 jungle gyms, maybe, and then a shack. But like, I don't like lopsided maps. Like, even if it's lopsided in my favor, I don't like Survivors have a miserable time on this map. But when I play Survivor on this time on this map, it's miserable. I don't like it. Also, it is a huge map. It is really big. It is a really big map. So if you're not playing somebody who's like good at mobility, or you know, you don't trick the Survivors into 3-genning, you're gonna have a hard time pressuring gens just because you have to walk so far. So it's just kind of like an unpleasant map. It's just not great. Okay, so here comes our last one of this really long video. Suffocation Pit. Suffo Pit. I'm gonna put Suffo Pit right here, right behind Fractured Cowshed. For some reason, we have some avid Suffocation Pit fans out there in the Dead by Daylight community, and I don't get it. I think this map is like Diet Fractured Cowshed. It is literally Fractured Cowshed's little brother. So you have a main building, which is pretty strong. It's got 2 windows, and one of those windows leads into both those windows lead into a pallet, because there's always 2 or 3 pallets around the side of the main building there, the Suffocation Pit itself. So you are getting 2 windows into a pallet already, right? So that's already pretty strong. And then there's the middle part of this map, which is Tile City, USA, where there's literally, I'm not even exaggerating, like 7 or 8 jungle gyms that spawn literally right next to each other. One of the harder things to do as a Survivor is to know when to leave tiles. The tiles are all like 2 feet from each other. You do not have to brain literally at all to chain tiles on this map. It does it for you. And they're all mostly like, you don't, like, I've had some not great spawns of Suffo Pit, but typically I don't get like a ton of wall T-walls. Usually I get the safe pallets. So that is the bone zone for Killer. It is just easy mode for Survivor. It's super unfun. Super unfun. And you may be thinking, oh, well, that doesn't sound too bad. They still have Shack on the other side of the map. So in addition to all these strong things, they have Shack on the other side of the map. And tiles on that side, too. It's just a miserable map. The reason people like Suffo Pit is it's one of those maps that's a little bit easier to 3-gen. So people like it for that reason. And this map has been known to spawn dead zones. Like, it'll spawn like Pride Rock in a corner, and Pride Rock, unless you have balance, doesn't really do anything. But I still think that the rest of the map is so strong that it goes from being like Fractured Cowshed level to like Disturbed Ward or Torment Creek level. Like, it's never even close to balanced. It's still always one of the most miserable maps in the game for both sides for me. So I absolutely detest Suffo Pit, and I'm like, I will change your mind about a Suffo Pit being an okay map. It is garbo. That map is disgusting, and I hate that map so much. But yeah, that is my map tier list of this really, really long video. But yeah, as you can see, there's a general trend that most maps in this game I don't like. I think in general the map design in this game is disgusting. I think they make big maps for no freaking reason. They put all the gens at the edges, and we don't even really get to see each other that often. And that's most maps in this video game. And it's just like, it's just not fun. Most of the maps in this game aren't fun. The maps are not the strong part of this game for me. I think most of the maps are very poorly designed and this is fine at best. Most maps are this is fine at best. There's only really a few I like, and like some of those are only just like nostalgic reasons. For the most part, I think the map design in Dead by Daylight is really bad. And I think RPD kind of showed you that, you know, they're going to continue to make these really garbage, horrible maps. So it's not going to get better, unfortunately. I hope it does, but I hate the map design in this game, and I'm sure you've caught on to that. I hate the map design in this game, so surprise, most maps are bad. Hello. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this really, really long video. Thank you so much if you've stayed this long. It's gonna be one of the longer videos on the channel, so thank you so much for sticking by, and if I don't see you in the next YouTube video or on the Twitch zone, I will see you when I see you, friends. Bye-bye, bye-bye, goodbye, appreciate you, goodbye.